Hey everybody, it's Rothbard's Disciple here, and I'm bringing you guys a quick tutorial video on how to download everything that you're going to need for creating GUIs and stuff within Python. Um, and we're going to go through so that if you're a novice, you can do this. I'm not like an expert at this, but I know enough to tell you guys how you do this. The first thing that you actually need downloaded if you're going to create programs and you want them to have GUIs is a Qt. Qt is just it's a way to create GUIs. It's really simple. It's originally for C++, but you can use it with Python as well. You'll have to download more things than just Qt, because if you only have Qt, you can't use it with Python yet. But you just go to Qt, you go to the download. There's the commercial option and the open source option. You want the open source option unless you're like a professional, then you might want to use the commercial option, which you'll eventually have to pay for. Just click the open source thing here. Click download, and then real quickly it's going to give you the download thing there. Save that file, run the installer, and it's like 30 gigabytes, so it's pretty big. But and you might be able to get away, like if you really know what you're doing, you might not have to download everything. But I just downloaded everything because I didn't really know what I was doing. Okay, but again, we're going to be using Python. So you've got Qt, that's cool, but you also need Python. When you're looking at Python here, just search in Python. Go to python.org, go to the download page. I'm using 3.70 for Python. You can use 3.71, 3.72. You could use older versions. I think it's probably best to use one of the newer versions just because that's standard or whatever. That's what people are using. And so that's what I use, is I use 3.70. It'll take you to this page here. You're going to want to go down here to files, and you're going to want an executable installer. There's this one at the bottom or this one at the top. I think the one at the bottom is 32-bit. The one at the top is 64-bit. That's why it says 64 right there. I have a 64-bit computer, so I just went and I clicked that, and it again gives you the file to save, and then it'll go up in your downloads, and then you can start the installer. Now, when you're downloading Python, the one thing that is absolutely necessary that it doesn't do by default is you're going to need to add Python 3.7 to path. Okay, so when you go to install it, it'll give you this checkbox at the bottom, and I think by default it is not checked down or checked. So you need to check where it says add Python 3.7 to path. And the reason why you're going to want to do that is we're going to do things called like pip installs coming on later on. Where you need to have Python in your path. After, when you've downloaded Python, the way to check if it's in your path is you open up a command prompt and you're just going to type in the words Python and hit enter. If you do not have Python in your path, it'll give you some sort of error, or it'll tell you there's no, like it doesn't know what you're asking it to do. But if you do have Python in your path, it'll tell you the version of Python you have right there. Okay, so that's what you want. And so if you type in Python, hit enter, and it tells you the version of Python you have, Python's in your path, and you're all ready to go. Now, the one thing that you need to look at here is when he downloads this, the first thing he does is he installs PyQt5. And it tells him he's got a couple of things that he needs to upgrade. Okay, whoops. So if you wanted to install his or upgrade his pip right here, because it says he's using an older version of pip. Well, sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. You've downloaded Python, now you need to install PyQt5. Okay, so when you install PyQt5, again, you need Python in your path, so you'll do a command prompt and you'll write down the first line that he has here. You're going to want to do -m pip install PyQt5. And again, if you guys watch this video, you can go through it yourself. It's a little bit fast, and there's a couple slight things that are missing that he doesn't have here correctly. But that's okay. But again, all you're going to want to do is copy that the thing on top where it says just Python -m pip install PyQt5. And remember, if you don't have Python in your path, when you type in Python, first off, like it won't recognize it, so everything that follows, it won't recognize it. So in order to do this pip install, you have to have Python in your path. So you'll do that, and it'll load pretty quickly. This one gives him actually a couple of warnings. I'll go over those warnings in a second. The next thing, but first I want to go over the second thing he installs. So the second thing he installs after you install PyQt5 is PyQt5 tools. Now you need PyQt5 tools, otherwise you're not going to have some of the things that are necessary in order to get PyQt5 to work. Okay, so if you want to do drag and drop GUIs without having to manually code it yourself, you need to also install these PyQt5 tools. And the other thing I want to remind you guys too is if you decide you want to remove this stuff from your computer, when you're doing these commands where it says python-m pip install and then here it's PyQt5 tools, if you want to uninstall it, you do the same command except instead of writing install, you write uninstall. So it's very easy to uninstall for those of you who are novices who haven't done command line installations before. But now to go up and look at the warnings it's given him, he's got two warnings here. The one on bottom is not super important. It says he's using an older version of pip, and so he could actually upgrade his version of pip, and he can do that really easily by just following this command here. Types that in. It should upgrade his version of pip, and he won't ever see that warning again. The second one is actually talking about some of the things he's got downloaded. So some of the things that you need within PyQt5 are things like pyuic5.exe. We're going to be going over that later on. And it says it's not in his version of path. Now again, when it's in your version of path, what that means is that instead of having to open up the specific folder like where you have Python on, you can just do it in your command prompt. So I think you could possibly still do some sort of a pip install with this if you didn't download Python to path. If you just you'd first have to move to the folder where Python is downloaded, and when you want to move to a folder in something like this, you do this cd and then you would type in some sort of folder. And as you can see, instead of before where I was just in C users brick, now if I did cd and then I gave it this new path to go to, it puts me in that path or folder. Okay, and so the whole reason you put something to path is so you don't have to manually find the folder. And you'll see actually this guy, as he's doing this, he does not put pyuic5 to his path, and so then he actually has to move on to that folder when he wants to use pyuic5. Okay, and the whole reason why you want to use pyuic5 is you're going to you create test files through the Qt creator, and we'll get to the Qt creator in a second, or we'll open that up in a second. But before you actually before you can use the Qt creator, what you actually need to do is you need to find or open up Python. Again, we downloaded Python to your path, and the way you check what's in your path is you'll go to Edit Environment Variables on Windows. So in the bottom left here, just type in Edit. The rest of this should come up. You don't actually want this top version because you can't edit the things on bottom, although I'm not so sure how many times you actually need to edit the things on bottom. It's usually just the stuff on top that you need to edit. Whoops, sorry, I'm typing in the wrong thing. But if you go back to this and type in edit, the one on bottom here where it just says edit the system and environment variables, if you click that, this brings you up this page here or whatever, the system properties page. And if you click environment variables, now you can actually edit the things on bottom. And again, I don't think you're actually going to need to edit the things in bottom, but it just gives you the option, which, like, if you need to get in there and click on, where's path? If you needed to click on path and open that up, you can. Okay, you absolutely can. Now, when you add things to the path, this doesn't really matter that much. I accidentally added a bunch of things to path that I don't actually need in path, but you can always go in there and delete them. It's not like it's going to cause you huge issues with your computer running. You don't want to delete anything from path, so you really don't want to edit this stuff too much, but adding something sort of incorrectly won't really matter all that much as well either. But as you can see, if you're watching this video here, once you've installed PyQt5 and PyQt5 tools, you actually need to make sure that you can quickly and easily open up the application that you want, because for some reason it doesn't install the designer with a shortcut to it. So if you open this up, go to your path, and you're going to want to open up, just get to your Python, right? So I'm just opening up this here on the bottom initially, and I think when you download Python and say download or add Python 3.7 to path here, I think all it adds is this first one, because we're going to have to manually add in this second one, because if we go back here to the warning that it gave him when he was downloading this stuff, it says when he does this again, it says that you've got PyUIC5, which is that's a very important package, or it's a very important part of PyQt5. It says it's not in his path, okay? And so PyUIC5 is actually located in his scripts. So when it's giving him that warning, if you want to add it to your path, all you do is, and again, you can see that I've added mine. Mine is not Python 3.6 like his was. Mine is Python 3.7. And so if it tells you that you need to add the scripts thing to your path, it's just the exact same path as your Python, but then you just add in the scripts there, okay? And if you want to add something new, you just do it right there and you add that stuff in, okay? But I've already got this stuff added in. Again, if you want to add Python or the scripts thing to your path, you probably should, because later on when we use PyUIC5, if you don't have it in your path, then you have to manually find the path itself. Like, you have to open up everything, and that's not really what you want. But the first thing that we're going to do before we get to PyUIC5 is you're going to copy where your Python is located, open up your File Explorer. Whoops, you want to whatever, just paste that in there, hit enter. Okay, now once you are here, you're going to want to go to the folder titled lib with a capital L. Once you're in lib, you look for site packages right here in with the S, site packages. You click that. Once you're in site packages, you look for PyQt5 tools. Now when you get here, you're going to see your designer here, but it's not going to have a shortcut. You're going to want to right click it, and you're going to want to go down to where it says create shortcut. Obviously I already have a shortcut, so I don't need to create a shortcut when I have a shortcut. The reason why you want to add a shortcut is then you can just type it in to your little search bar here at the bottom, and you can open it up with your shortcut. Okay, so this is what PyQt looks like. It's still, again, it just shows you Qt here, but we're using it for our Python, right? And so what you do once you have PyQt, the way that you actually use it, and again, a lot of this stuff isn't going to make sense to you yet. You don't need to know too much of it. We're going to add a text box. Like, all these things on the left or on the left are things that you can add, and the thing that's nice about this is if you're actually trying to program GUIs yourself, you can't drag and drop. Like, you have to manually add. Like, if I were adding a text box, I'd have to declare the text box in the code. Then I'd have to make the size of it, where it's located within the GUI, and that can be really time consuming. It can take a lot of time, and obviously if I said it's time consuming, it takes a lot of time. But this is just really easy. And then once you have things like this, like if you want to save something like this, you just click save. And when you save it, you have to put it in a folder where you're going to remember it, guys, okay? Because we're going to be calling this up through another command line program, and we're going to need to know the location of the file, okay? And so I'm going to copy over that test thing right there. You save it. And so now this file is saved to that location, and I saved it in my coding folder. You can save it to your desktop. I have a specific folder for all my coding, and as you can see, here's my test thing. If I open this up, it should open back up to the Qt Designer or some form of the Qt Designer, but we actually don't want it to open up in the Qt Designer. We want it to open up as a line of code. So if we go back and look at other versions of Qt Designers that I have, it should look something more like this. This one has a lot more buttons. There's like 4 buttons and 4 text editors. Ours should only have 1. But as you can see, our file here is test, and it's in a UI file. This one, PyQt test, has a UI file, and it has a Python file. Okay, so what we're actually going to do is we're going to take this UI file and make it into a Python file. And it's actually pretty easy to do. And again, this guy's video, he has all the information here. But like I said, some of his stuff is a little bit not necessarily inaccurate. He's missing a couple small things that don't matter. And again, the one small thing that matters that we're going to look at here is he doesn't actually have his this path or this directory in his path. Like we said before, not only did we want Python, the Python in our path, but we put the scripts in our path. So he has Python in his path, but he doesn't have the other /scripts in his path. And so when he tries to take his UI file and transfer it into a Python file, when he goes into his command line, since it's not in his path, what he has to actually do is he hits CD, and then he I guess I need that edit system environment variables back up. He actually has to manually change his directory to his path. So again, What he wants is he doesn't have this in his path, and again I have it in my path, so I'm just going to copy it and paste it from there. But since his Python scripts is not in his path, he has to hit CD and then hit or copy and paste his the location of his scripts folder into the command, and if you hit CD and then just the location of the folder, it automatically takes you there, okay? And so this is where he has to be because he does not have it in his path. Now, we have all of this in our path, so we're not going to show you doing it through using CD because we don't need to, so you actually want to, if you can, you want to put your scripts in your path, and it makes this easier because then all you have to do is type PyUIC5, and then you're going to hit -X, and the -X means this is sort of your input file or whatever. And then you're going to actually give it the location of the file that we just created, which is our test file right here. Again, when you're in File Explorer, you just go up here, copy this, and you're going to paste this right here. So that's the location of the folder where our file is, but we also need the name of the file, and this is a test.ui file. So we do this little slash here, and we go test.ui, and then you close your parentheses here, so you got parentheses on both sides, okay? And your parentheses are just around the location of the file that's going to be your input for the PyUIC5. Once you have the input, then you press -O for your output, and then you're going to, again, you just write in the location where you want the output to go. Technically speaking, if you want this to go in another folder, you can, but it's usually better to have your files together rather than separate them in all these confusing ways. And then you're just going to write the name of the output, or that you want for the output file, and it has to end in .py because it's a Python file, and we're just going to do test again. And so we're just going to go from, again, right here we have our test.ui file as input, and then we have our test.py file as output. And so once you do that, you just hit enter, and as you can see up here, it took like no time. If you saw below, it actually created this test file. So the file that we just created, which we're going to open with idle, it gave us this, okay? And so we didn't have to do any coding, but we've got this, and when you run it, it gives you your dialog box. Now, this doesn't do anything, okay? I can write in this, but it doesn't do anything because we haven't actually told it to do anything. And so what you will do later on is once you have this file that you created, you'll add in your functions and whatnot that'll make the buttons do things, okay? And so obviously this video number 1, we're not going over that, but you've gotten to where you need to be, where you've created your own GUI, you've transferred it from the UI file to the Python file, and then you could actually start coding from within it, okay? And so the later videos that come out, we're actually going to show you how to do programming. Most of the programming you do is within idle, again, as we showed before. It'll open up this shell for you. This is actually what you would type stuff into, is within this, but like if I wanted to print off hi, this is how you do it. When you want to print off words, you do quotation marks, or sorry, not quotation marks, parentheses, and then inside the parentheses you do quotation marks, and then the words that you want to actually print out, and it's got to be saved. And so we're going to go up here to our coding, YouTube test. We're going to overwrite this. Yes, yes, yes. And once it's saved, you can either go through run up here or hit F5 and run it, and there it is. It's printing out hi for us on the other side. If we want it to print out hello, you just switch that, hit F5 again to save it and run, and it prints out hello. Okay, so when we actually show you how to do coding, you're going to start off within this right here, within idle, and we'll show you how to do a bunch of coding there, and then how to transfer it over to PyQt. But anyways, I hope this video sort of helped, and I hope it gave you a little more information than some of those other videos that are out there, because they can be a little confusing. But like I said, like if you just want to follow this guy's video right here, he's got a huge amount of information, really condensed, and it's a really great video. I'll have links to that in the description, but this guy really shows you a lot of things to do. And once you get farther on, when he's actually creating a little GUI, he makes it have actually a bunch of different functions that are a little bit more advanced, where he's opening up images from his desktop and putting it into his GUI and things like that, which is really kind of cool. But again, it's mainly the first half of this, just downloading the programs that you really need, and this is really a great video. But again, I hope you guys enjoy this, and hopefully it helps you guys learn just how to download this stuff. Because when I started this, I spent it was probably like a week and a half at least trying to just download things correctly so that they would work, and it was really, really frustrating. But anyways, that's the end of this video. The next video will actually teach you guys how to do a little bit of coding, but step number one for coding is download your programs correctly. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a bad time, which is, I had a little bit of a bad time when I did this. But like I said, more videos coming out soon.